based on a 2027 re-election bid. NTV's Melita Oletenges captured the arguments.
As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Members of the National Assembly unanimously approved Cabinet Secretary nominees after a report tabled by the House Committee on Appointments. The report had rejected the nomination of Penina Malonza as Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, but that was rescinded by the National Assembly plenary, following a motion of amendment by Kitui MP Irene Kasalu, seconded by Endebess MP Robert Pukose.
I move the following motion, that in the view of the decision of the House today, with respect to the motion on the approval of appointment of Honorable Penina Malonza OGW as a Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, and the requirement for an unequivocal decision of the National Assembly on such matters, I beg to move.
A majority of the MPs defended Penina Malonza for fumbling during her interview before the vetting committee.
When I looked at the parameter that they used to reject Penina Malonza, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking my questions, these questions. Did she qualify? Does she have the relevant papers? Has she been in employment?
Some of the questions that embarrassed that lady were very specific questions that required a technical person. And in this level of trying to come up with CSS, we may not need that.
Dissenting members of parliament argue that President Ruto's appointments not only lack regional balance, but also is a calculative move to help him secure a second term in 2027.
This is a cabinet that was informed by political expediency. The president has actually appointed 2027 campaign managers, regional campaign managers. The president is simply telling us that we give him a cabinet that is not going to function because he's ready to run the entire government system, machinery and structure from State House using advisors.
Mimi niko na hofu na baadhi ya wengine hapo, japokuwa sitawataja, lakini mheshimiwa iko na iwapo mtu amekiri kwamba ako na kesi 35, mheshimiwa Spika, hata akitunukiwa nafasi hiyo, hata yeye mwenyewe akili yake haitatulia, hataweza kutumikia akiwa na ile akili tulivu.
After approval by Parliament and the resignation of elected members in both houses, the CS nominees are a step closer towards assuming a new title and a new office. The bridge in between is the swearing-in ceremony scheduled to take place on Thursday, and in the days to come, a handover in the different dockets. Melita Oletenges, NTV, at the Parliament Buildings, Nairobi County.
Now, whether through an easy sale or a close shave, all of President William Ruto's nominees to the cabinet were approved, as you saw there in that report by Melita Oletenges. Their approval bringing into focus all the hullabaloo and claims of integrity issues that the country was treated to throughout the vetting process, to almost believing that for the first time a vetting exercise would give a result different from being a president's rubber stamp. But alas, that was not to happen. Ibrahim Karanja looks at the country's vetting process and whether or not it is worth it in the first place.
A major aspect of the now widely acclaimed Progressive Constitution of 2010 was the provision for vetting of nominees to key state offices, among them cabinet secretaries. In an attempt to ensure that only competence finds its way to serving the country, Parliament, the immediate representation of the people, is required to vet proposed cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, ambassadors and high commissioners, amongst other state officers.
Vetting basically means beyond the certificates you present, beyond the testimonials you give, are there things about you that are questionable? And can we go behind and see your intellectual capacity?
But a process so banked on by Kenyans to separate chaff from the wheat is in itself now raising questions. Since the promulgation of the Constitution, the vetting exercises witnessed by Kenyans have left very little, if anything, to write about. For instance, the vetting processes have widely been seen as rubber stamps to desired appointments, and in the event the vetting authority holds a different opinion from that of the appointing authority, the decision has not been honored.
It doesn't serve any purpose.
Who does it satisfy?
Nobody. The president will get his way. Parliament will do their thing, which is... I know that the parliament comes out very badly, including the speaker. They come out very badly.
Thank you very much.
In 2013, the then Appointments Committee of the National Assembly rejected Phyllis Kandie as the cabinet nominee for East African Affairs, Commerce and Tourism. But in a fashion similar to one seen today, the committee of the whole house ignored the recommendation and approved the former cabinet secretary alongside the rest. 2 years later, in 2014, the National Assembly adopted a recommendation by the Committee on National Security to reject the appointment of Monica Juma as Secretary to the Cabinet, owing to her alleged misdeeds when she served as the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Defense. But no sooner had the ink that rejected her dried than her name went back for approval at Parliament, this time as a CS nominee for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2018, where she was approved.
Were you a citizen when you are cleared by IBC?
But perhaps painting the vetting process as useless was the appointment of Mwende Mwinzi as Kenya's ambassador to South Korea, despite Parliament rejecting her appointment over her citizenship status.
Again, vetting must be about satisfying the people of Kenya that these people are the right people. So when somebody comes and says I have 800 million, question marks, Kenyans have a lot of question marks, and then the committee doesn't answer even one question mark. So that cannot be called vetting.
And despite the House Committee on Appointments unanimously rejecting the nomination of Penina Malonza, and a further minority report adding Mithika Linturi and Aisha Jumwa to the rejected list, it is the quick turnaround by members, some of whom even served in the Appointments Committee, to go against their own report that shines the spotlight on the vetting process and whether or not it serves any purpose. Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.
As I mentioned earlier, 4 members of Parliament tabled their resignations to the Speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, respectively, after they were approved by the august House to serve as Cabinet Secretaries. In their personal statements on the floor of the House, former Majority Leaders Aden Duale and Kipchumba Murkomen challenged Parliament to guard its autonomy as they narrated of the hard times they encountered from the very executive that appointed them.
President William Ruto is now set for the swearing-in of his first cabinet at State House after Parliament eventually approved all his nominees after a week-long vetting exercise. Consequently, 4 lawmakers, Eden Duale and Alice Wahome from the National Assembly, as well as their 2 counterparts from the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen and Soipan Tuya, tendered their resignations to the 2 speakers in readiness for their formal appointment by the president, alongside 20 others to pave way for their swearing-in into office.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members.
In their personal statements before handing in their resignations, the 2 former majority leaders gave tales of the tough times and turbulence they faced as they occupied the 2 powerful offices. For Eden Duale, it was many lessons he learned in politics.
I'm a living testimony, Mr. Speaker, that you don't have to betray your friends to thrive in politics. Ignore that nonsense.
Both Duale and former Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen explaining the hard choices they had to make following the fallout between retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and his then Deputy William Ruto, as well as opposing the executive push on certain issues.
The currency of political hygiene, Mr. Speaker, is loyalty, being principled. Can your friend rely on you when it really matters? Can you rely on your friend when it really matters? Can anyone depend on you? As many of my colleagues in here will tell you, we walked on fire, but we stood firm.
That responsibility required at times to disagree with the executive of the very party, Mr. Speaker, that nominated me. I believe some of the reasons why I was removed as majority leader, apart from other external political reasons, is, Mr. Speaker, I brought to this chamber a 20-page statement challenging, Mr. Speaker, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services as an entity, Mr. Speaker, taking over responsibilities of Nairobi County.
Both leaders prevailing upon their colleagues to guard Parliament's autonomy as they took responsibility for their past deeds.
Don't make laws that will hobble these institutions. I naively did that at some point, but I have since learned how costly it is to the people of this country and even to Parliament. And I trust, Mr. Speaker, that in this term, you will revisit those laws and remake them in the spirit of the Constitution.
There's a lot we would have achieved, Mr. Speaker, had we sorted the problem of relationship between this House and the National Assembly. There's a lot, Mr. Speaker, our country would have benefited if there was a proper implementation of Article 110 of the Constitution insofar as bills concerning county.
The resignation of the 3 elected members of Parliament now makes 4 the number of by-elections to be conducted by IEBC after Speaker Moses Wetangula resigned as Bungoma Senator.
Speaker
Duncan Haemba, NTV.
of the National Assembly.
The court has allowed an application by the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service to have 4 officers from the disbanded Special Service Unit detained as investigations take place. The officers, through their lawyers, had sought to have the application dismissed, saying it can only be made by the Director of Public Prosecutions or the Independent Oversight Authority. Yesterday, 5 more officers from the disbanded unit were arrested, and as Martin Mwangi reports, the defense has now vowed to appeal against the ruling.
In her ruling, Kahawa Law Court's Principal Magistrate Diana Mochache held that the Internal Affairs Unit of the Police Service can investigate and forward its findings to the DPP or the Inspector General of Police for further action.
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor.
The unit had made an application to have the 4 officers from the disbanded Special Service Unit detained for 30 days so as to conclude investigations. The 4 were arrested on Friday, 21st October, in connection with the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals and a Kenyan on July 22nd and 23rd. The defense had opposed the application, arguing that it is the mandate of the ODPP and IPOA to investigate and file charges against the officers.
The respondents have submitted that the IAU cannot investigate the offense of abduction. I do not agree. The unit can investigate, but upon completion, they must hand over the outcome to the IG or the DPP. To my understanding, the application before court is meant to facilitate the investigations and cannot be said to be an abuse of the court process.
The court has also allowed the families of the victims to be involved in the matter.
The matter before court is not one of a civil nature, as submitted by the Respondents' Council. The investigations are criminal in nature, insofar as they seek to unravel the mysteries surrounding the disappearance of 3 victims. The victims' family are therefore permitted under the Constitution as well as the Victims Protection Act to make interventions within the parameters set out by this court.
The defense, led by Danstan Omari, has objected the ruling and vowed to make an appeal at the High Court, despite being given 2 days until Friday to file a replying affidavit to the application.
We shall be before this court on Friday at 11 a.m. to argue that application. But meanwhile, before that, we shall be moving to the High Court today, and therefore by tomorrow we shall know whether the High Court has agreed with us, or if the High Court has not agreed with us, we have full instructions to move to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court.
According to the prosecution, preliminary investigations have placed the 4 officers, their vehicles, and other perpetrators at the scene of the crime and the possible location where the bodies of the IT experts and their driver were dumped in Aberdare Forest. Martin Mwangi, NTV.
The government of Pakistan has dispatched a team of investigators to probe the murder of journalist Arshad Mohammed Sharif. Sharif was murdered 4 days ago in a shooting that has since left more questions to be answered. The police narrative laying bare inconsistencies, as NTV's Brian Abuya reports.
The story of a purported kidnapping, 2 distinct motor vehicles, a unique rescue mission, and a murder that has now thrust Nairobi in the international limelight continues to deepen the mystery around the killing. The death of Arshad Sharif, a Pakistani journalist killed in Magadi, has sent shockwaves across Pakistan and spread fear in Kenya. Under pressure to exonerate itself from the murder, the Pakistani government, that is largely viewed to be a suspect in the killing, has sent a team of investigators to conduct an investigation. Those dispatched from Karachi are Arthur Wahid, who is the director of the Federal Investigation Authority, Omar Shahid Hamid, the Deputy Director General of the Pakistani Intelligence Bureau, and Lieutenant Colonel Saad Ahmed, an intelligence officer. The chilling manner in which Mr. Arshad Sharif was offed has left difficult questions that not just the police but anyone is unable to answer. Key among those questions border around the make of the vehicle. The car that had been reported stolen and with a kidnapped child is a Mercedes-Benz with a registration number that is different from the Land Cruisers. The police are unable, yet under pressure, to explain how the GSU officers involved in the shooting mistook a Toyota Land Cruiser for a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. And then there was the over a dozen bullets fired on the Land Cruiser. Why would police fire 9 bullets on the motor vehicle, yet they believed a kidnapped child was on board? How would that then be described as a rescue mission? If there were intentions to immobilize the vehicle, why did police aim at the passenger, firing over 4 bullets on his side and not the driver? But more importantly, police did not give a chase after the vehicle left, only to be informed about it the next day, painting a picture that whoever fired the shots may not have been after the vehicle or the kidnapping. After being asked why they shot at the vehicle without the slightest provocation, police have since changed their story to indicate that they were shot at first. Sharif was a harsh critic of the Pakistani government led by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who took over power in April following the ouster of his predecessor Imran Khan. The journalist fled Pakistan in August, citing threats to his life that he attributed to his publication of stories critical of the new administration. Back in Karachi, the Pakistanis believe that the answers to who killed Sharif are in Karachi and not Nairobi. They say Sharif could not just die. Not like that.
And he was very much aware that he is going to that area, which is very dangerous, and people can react to these kind of stories. And finally, when he got some information that now his life is threatened over here in Pakistan, then he decided to move to abroad.
When the investigation begins, it will be a question of who wanted Arshad Sharif dead and why. Brian Obuya, NTV.
The Cabinet Secretary nominee, rather now the Cabinet Secretary substantively having been appointed last night for Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, Aisha Juma, was ordered by the High Court in Mombasa to deposit her passport in court on the 30th of November 2022, when the case will be mentioned. The murder case against Juma suffered a blow on Tuesday for lack of specific details relating to the application filed seeking to settle the matter out of court. Senior State Counsel Vivian Kambuga informed the court that the DPP was yet to finalize on the withdrawal of the matter pending full submission of the agreement between the lead lawyer, Jared Magolo, and the family of the deceased. The lawyers also told the court that Juma could not appear in court physically because she was in Nairobi awaiting the approval of her nomination to the cabinet by the National Assembly.
There is a possibility that they might be sworn in after vetting immediately. So they have been instructed to be near State House, and that is the reason as to why she's not there. It is instruction that she received yesterday that they must, all the prospective nominees must be near State House so that that function is conducted to avoid any court processes. That we apologize sincerely, but that is the reason why our branch is not in open.
So we mentioned the matter on 30th of November, during which time the second accused person is expected to return the passport that was released to her in August.
Turkana Governor Jeremiah Lomurkai is now seeking anticipatory bail to stop the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission from arresting him over allegations of forgery of his academic papers. This follows a move by the Kenya Methodist University to revoke his degree certificate. In a sworn affidavit through his lawyer, Professor Tom Ojenda, Governor Lomurkai said he learned of his impending arrest through the media, a situation that has made it hard for him, he claims, to settle in office and discharge his mandate as governor due to constant fear and apprehension of impending arrest. The matter, which will be heard today, has been certified as urgent. Meanwhile, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has partnered with Moi University in a move aimed at fighting corruption and curbing the widespread fake degree menace in the education sector. Under this arrangement, EACC will scrutinize the financial management systems, policies, and operational procedures of the university to seal loopholes on corruption. Moi University is one of the public institutions that has faced cash flow challenges.
Policies, procedures, and practices of this institution with a view to identifying any possible weaknesses, loopholes, or opportunities that can be utilized by anyone to perpetrate corruption.
We are going through an exercise for the next few days to have the EACC look into our procedures, our policies, and work cultures with a view to looking at how robust our systems are.
This one is what we call the soft power of the commission, where we partner with the institutions and give them advice. And like where we have enforcement measures, where offenses have been committed and investigations carried out.
The search for the next set of representatives to the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, has kicked off with all member partners, save for Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo, having elected their representatives to the Regional Assembly. The nominated members are expected to report to Arusha, Tanzania by the 20th of December. Fatma Bugu has those details.
Kenya is rushing against time to elect the next set of representatives to the East African Legislative Assembly. The East Africa Legislative Assembly Elections Act 2011 provides that a new assembly is elected within 90 days before the expiry of the term of the subsisting assembly, implying that the country is already late in submitting names to the assembly. On Wednesday, the first joint committee co-chaired by Kipipiri constituency MP Wanjiku Muhia and Makueni Senator Daniel Maanzo on the election of members was held, setting the grounds for the rigorous exercise. According to the East Africa Legislative Assembly Act 2011, Kenya and the other 5 member states of the East African Community are entitled to 9 slots to be shared out among the parliamentary parties. The interested persons now await notification by clerks of the Senate and the National Assembly on the nomination dates and rules of governing election.
For those of you who have interacted with the politicians,
Fatma Bugu, NTV.
Please ensure that this country is respected.
All right, let's take a look at the news diary. What are we looking forward to on this day? And President William Ruto, having appointed his cabinet, is expected to preside over the swearing-in in State House Nairobi. Kenya Kwanza is also holding a PG parliamentary group meeting in State House starting at 7:30 this morning, and the EU Observer Mission to release its final election report. Let me see what else we have on the list this morning. And Turkana governor to seek orders to block his arrest, and outgoing Treasury CS Ukur Yatani now gone. Treasury CS Ukur Yatani to hand over to President William Ruto's appointee. And that is what we have on the news diary. Let's now take a look at what is on the dailies as I engage my panelists on our stories this morning. I see here the Daily Nation Hustler Cabinet, how Azimio walked into a Kenya Kwanza trap on approval of the nominees. This on page 2, 3, and 4. Here we have President William Ruto and his appointees. President William Ruto's new army of 22 cabinet secretaries, Attorney General Justin Muturi and Secretary to the Cabinet Mercy Wanjau, approved by Parliament and gazetted yesterday, are taking over from the Uhuru Cabinet at a time when the new administration is under pressure to deliver on the mandate at the highest level of public service. Pictures here of the 24 nominees who were cleared, notably. I'm looking, here she is, a woman smiling broadly, Penina Malonza, who had been rejected by the Committee on Appointments. Also on the front page of the Daily Nation, investigation, Man and Sharif shooting saga with Rose's case against San. This is a chain of events as detailed on the front page. Douglas Wainaina and his son travel from Mombasa to Nairobi. While in Nairobi, Wainaina reports his car and his son missing. A few hours later, Sharif is shot dead by police at a roadblock mounted to intercept the quote-unquote stolen van. A day later, police say the son had driven the van to visit his mother in Kiserian. He is arrested, but his father withdraws the case. And I can see down here, President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, joins Tigray peace negotiations. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta is among African leaders spearheading formal peace talks between the warring side in Ethiopia's Tigray conflict. The peace talks, which opened in South Africa yesterday under the auspices of the African Union. With me in studio to shed light on this subject matter, we're joined by Beatrice Elachi and Advocate Eunice Lumalas. Good to have you both in studio. Beatrice, I'll start with you. Were you in Parliament as this vetting, as you were debating the report from the Committee on Appointments, and there were a lot of arguments bandied back and forth. I wonder what your thoughts were.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
And did I mention that you're the Member of Parliament, Dagoretti North? I was remiss in not mentioning that, yes. So I can call her Mweshimiwa.
It's okay, whatever. Yeah, I think for me, when the names were named way back with the president, I gave my opinion. I said, you know what, this is your cabinet. You need it that way. And I said I never felt to interfere, because I knew if you start, you'll just have a lot of clashes with people and you'll be doing it for nothing, you know. You'll come, you'll start saying this one has this. Everyone in that docket, except very few of them, you will find issues. And as a president, when you bring in names, I always believe you liaise with national intelligence security. They will guide you on everyone's background. So if you have done that check, why would I come now again and start a process? Because you want that cabinet. And then when I looked at Parliament, I realized we will come, you will say, yes, I'll put in my, it will be on the Hansard what I said, but at the end, it will just end up again going the way it went. So, and the other thing I said, for the first time I told myself, we've been women fighting for women issues and all that. I know women always like coming out and saying, oh, you have to look for a good woman. Do men look for good men? They brought us rapes, guys who have gone through charges of rape, and nobody talked about it. No man stood and fought it. But you as a woman, you want to come out and display now. And that is what has been hurting many women. So I asked myself, there's a women, let them go. Let Penina go. Penina schooled at Nairobi University. She has been a deputy governor. I remember in 2013, Phyllis Kandie, in the same docket, when she came for her interviews, they were about to remove her again. The same way, they said she could not speak, she could not tell us how she's going to do wildlife. And I look at this, and then I ask myself, I have been in government I should thank God I'm privileged. I've been at the Senate, I've been at the County Assembly, and I worked into national government. I have looked at all these processes and I've realized every institution depends with the person. It does not matter whether you have very good papers. You can have very good papers, come and talk to us, Kizungu Mingi, and by the time you are entering that office, you perform badly. You wonder, even people wonder, who are you? So it depends on how you take that institution and decide, I want to change Kenya. And going forward, Kenyans must understand, in every position we have today, if that person does not have time to change anything, it won't change. Whether he was good, whether you are bad. But if that person has determination, dedication, that she would want to see change, even if it is minimal change, but change, they will transform Kenya. And so for this team, the most important thing is, as they go, first of all, go and appreciate you have civil servants who are going to be your technical team. They will guide you. Listen to them. Don't go and become, as some of the CSs who are in Uhuru's government, where you cannot enter even with your technical person in the lift. They have to walk out. Don't go and do those things. Don't go and start you transfer people thinking that is how you are helping yourself. You will find yourself in a lot of challenges, because as you transfer, this is the person maybe who has been there and understands better. Go and create a team that will help you to deliver for Kenyans. Don't go and create a team that you'll put walls for yourself. At that time, you're going to find a lot of challenges. There are also ministries that are very key, that interior, you find you have a very, very serious team from down. And because they talk of bottom, I think that's why you start with bottom, because you start with the chiefs, you come, and each of them are very, very key in terms of you delivering security, ensuring Kenyans are able to get services from government, ensuring we go back to barazas where you bring in your issues, but more importantly, don't create a wall also. And when you go to your president, be honest to your president. You are not the one who has created the document that you're presenting. And therefore, always appreciate and remind His Excellency, I have a team that has worked with me, and that is why I have this document, and we are moving with it. If they do that, we see Kenya move. If they don't, oh my goodness me, I am so worried. But it is a country for all of us. Every part that we have to handle that.
All right.
Yes.
Wakili, Mheshimiwa here giving a few words of advice to these cabinet secretaries. And I remember on the floor of the House, I had a conversation, or MPs saying how some of these CSs in the previous administration were difficult to access, and therefore Beatrice Elachi asking them to be accessible and asking the president to listen to those he's appointed. But Wakili, the other concern that came up on the floor of the House was a question of representation. So there were some who raised concern around the number of women on the cabinet, but that was based on the charter that President William Ruto signed with women promising 50-50. But more pressing or more prominent for many of the MPs was the absence perhaps of a person living with disability not being represented on the cabinet, or youth. Apart from that, we had Junet Mohammed, as we'll hear in a moment, because I'll replay some of those conversations or some of those contributions. He also talked about regional balance. So is the president under any obligation, or is it a guiding principle that these groups should be represented?
Thank you very much for that question and for inviting me, right? So one of the things that I have to start with is the Charter for Women. You know, there were about 10,000 women attending the signing ceremony for the Charter, and we were promised, as Kenyan women, to get 50-50 in appointments, including cabinet, and that was great. And a lot of women were out there, you know, screaming with joy and anticipation. You know, we are now going to get this because we have signed, the president has signed the Charter. and we're going to get 50% of cabinet position. That would really have been a big one for this president, in even getting buy-in into his vision. But now we have seen what has happened. You know, he has failed to deliver on the charter, right? So when I look at the Constitution and how much our leadership has been taking that document for granted, it shocks me that people are not really thinking long-term in terms of what will be the greater good for this nation. You know, because if we have deliberately chosen inclusivity, and the president is expected to appear in parliament once a year to give a report, and one of the key things he's supposed to speak about is inclusivity. And then you find that the president, and let me give credit where it's due. I think people didn't expect him to do as much as he has done in terms of a regional representation, taking cue from what he did by his previous appointees in the previous government. I think he's tried with regional appointees, tried. And I know it's always a balancing act. However, it is not out of nothing, you know, out of wind or air that we have deliberately legislated that we need persons of disability to feel that they are part of Kenya. I mean, even if you give one or two, they'll feel that they can express themselves as fully as possible, you know, and get to the longest, largest place, you know, possible for them, even with their handicap. But now, that is not there. And the youth comprise our future, you know. We appreciate the fact that we will not be here for the long haul. And I wonder why people, when they reach a certain age, you know, even personally where I am now, I'm already thinking legacy. Doesn't this matter? Don't you want to say what place you played in ensuring that we have a future that our progeny, our generations, years to come, will be proud of? And we have seen this in many countries, particularly in the north. Why wouldn't it happen to us as Africans? So we don't have youth, and yet youth comprise the largest voters. That is scorning upon our future. It just means they don't care. And for me, that's a big concern. It's really, really a big concern. Okay. We have failed the Constitution. We have failed to honor our own promises. There must be honor in the handshake. In the handshake means in paper, in the documents you sign. So already, for me, that's a breach. Okay. And we're starting from a position of a breach.
All right. And speaking of charters, because you started with the Women's Charter, he had pledged that the youth would have its standalone ministry and that it would be led by the youth. All right. But we do have the PS positions yet to be filled, as well as those of, depending on what the verdict is on the position of CAS. All right, so apart from that, on the Daily Nation, we have this investigation. As I mentioned, the Pakistani journalist whose killing shocked the nation, not just Kenya, but Pakistan. And I see here the Daily Nation now getting in depth into these cabinet members. The officials will be in charge of proposing, modifying, policy, as well as being overall leaders of executing the head of state's vision in their various dockets. It should be an interesting read, given what the front page has promised to show how, this is on page 4, how Azimio MPs walked into Kenya Kwanza trap on cabinet approval. This report by Samuel Owino Apro against bid to deny Malonza job said to be a ploy to scuttle opposition push to reject Jumwa and Linturi. You'll make up your own mind once you get a chance to read it. And this is a Wiper MP being quoted as stating it was a political mind game, but our people in the committee failed to see it. What do you think of this, Mheshimiwa?
Let me not talk about the committee, because all of them anonymously, by the way, rejected Penina. But I think then it became a regional issue, not really an Azimio issue, I won't say that. It became a regional issue, and I think the Kambas were not very happy. And I think that's why they went and did the press conference. But in the end, as a team, I think, for me, I asked myself, why are we rejecting a woman? And what, I mean, surely. And so for us women, we were very clear. you can't just reject the woman. Why? The only woman. And you know, the most interesting thing is you have written a report. That report says she answered everything. So you're wondering, the only last article is where, a paragraph, is where now you put, I don't know, she was not able now to really answer issues of wildlife. But 9 points, you've said she's answered. And then you ask yourself, and I think Kenyans, we have to ask ourselves now, going forward, this vetting, you know, because if you are vetting the American way, I think we would have rejected everyone. Because in the American way, they go back to your background when you are born in high school, or you are bully. You come, and they look for everything. Now, that's vetting. But in Kenya, we are trying to do it, but we fear. All of us fear to come out in an honest way to vet, because you don't know whether you're next. And because all of us have something, then that is why it becomes very difficult for you even to vet the right way. So that is one thing. Number two, I would say that when I look at us, all of us as citizens, that responsibility, it starts from even not on these positions. It starts from where you are. And today, if you ask me, why do we have garbage? Why would you walk on the road and throw something? Yeah, it's totally lack of that responsibility, that of understanding that you would wish to have a clean environment. But you'll find the same person who threw a bottle while driving, a Coca-Cola bottle, is the same person who is saying, there's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of, you are part of the problem. So if we want to find Kenya going to Dar es Salaam, today you go to Dar es Salaam, it's becoming number 2 from Rwanda. That they are able to keep their capital city clean, and there is that sense of responsibility that if I am chewing a chewing gum, I either carry and find a bin and put, but in Kenya, where people believe we are more, our gold is our mind. We are so learned in this country, but we have decided we want to live in a filthy place. We don't care what is cleanliness, but we are so godliness. While godliness goes with cleanliness. And we must start thinking of that. And that is how we must start thinking, starting with the capital city. So even before we look at all this, we have a lot in ourselves to ask before we even question what we are given. Because we are given the same image as we are. Yes.
All right. So we need to take a break. But speaking of cleanliness being next to godliness, I have some of the highlights of the debate on the floor with regard to the cleanliness of these appointees. Yes, but this was not only the cabinet that made news yesterday. We had cabinet CCs named for Nairobi County. Johnson Sakaja unveiling his naming his CCs, as well as James Orengo in Siaya. We have more on the other side of
I would want to see that one of Nairobi.
There's a story on it.
The biggest television event of 2022. The world's most watched sport. The biggest names in football. Every team. The build-up. The venues. The stars. The controversy. As the world does battle for the greatest trophy of all. This is the pinnacle of football. 40 premium episodes of Destination Qatar.
This October the 29th, Nation FM and E-Series Events invites you to I Love the 90s at the Denim Affair. Come sing your hearts out at the Carnivore as you dance to the best of the 90s with your favorite DJs. DJ E, the legendary DJ Ben, DJ Gitchboy, DJ Vanny, and Nairobi's freshest MC, Gustavo. Tickets are 800 bob advance and 1,000 bob at the gate. I Love the 90s, a denim affair, powered by E-Series Entertainment and Nation FM.
Mambo vipi watu wangu. This 30th of October, we are coming live to you from the Technical University of Kenya.
Yes, and of course takuwa na wasanii bomba sana in the building. Yo people, Gavi Royal again.
Yesu nani hapa shida bye bye.
Pale Technical University tutakuwa step on it, say again.
Put your boots on, step on it, say again.
And crazy dancers, so don't miss.
So be sure to join us from 11:30 to 1 p.m. only on NTV.
And this is Crossover.
Pewa change yako.
Bado mazee kondaja nipea change bado kuna change yangu 50 bob.
Mimi nimempea tawa anafaa kunirudishia so 9. Wewe conductor change.
Nani huyo ati change? Konda hujanipea change yangu ya chwani wewe.
Hata mimi nimekupea tawa hujanipea change. Cheki hujanipea change na amehang hivyo vidangerous.
Sasa imagine akinia na change yako ama agongwe na gari.
Wewe conductor mazee buji linda tafadhali uko na change yangu.
Change gani?
Wewe
wachwani niko na change yako najua.
Mimi nimekupea tawa.
Hujanipea yeye ni buda. Unadhani nimechi?
Cheki nimekupea tawa nikiingia mazee.
Labda conductor mwingine sio mimi bro. Ndio maana mimi upenda pesa kidogo kwa matu.
Wewe donda mazee nimekupea tawa nikiingia. Tafadhali acha ukora mazee.
Wewe acha ukora buda sawa?
To get conductor kukatalia change, dial *811 *928 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Frequent droughts and floods have reduced Namibia's agricultural output and threatened its sustainable economic growth. But now the country is exploring seaweed as a potential solution to climate change.
The African gaming industry has been growing very fast over the years. This week, I interact with developers and gamers in Kenya to understand the emerging opportunities in original, locally produced games.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. And we were on these cabinet appointees, but let's take a look at what else is in the paper this morning. Ruto to host lawmakers at State House. This is the reason we were unable to get an MP from Kenya Kwanza because of this parliamentary group, this meeting. It was 7:30, so they were like coming in for the show, and doing this would have been a bit tricky, but that is what is happening on the political front. I showed you this picture of, on the front page of the Daily Nation, former President Uhuru Kenyatta taking part in those peace talks over as concerns Ethiopia and the Tigray conflict in South Africa. And car in Sharif saga was stolen by man's son. This captures the latest coming out of the investigations or probe into what transpired on this fateful day. And this is with regard to that report on the defense failing to stop detention of 4 officers facing murder charges. More officers attached to that now infamous SSU Special Service Unit having also been arrested. There's a report here on page 12 of the Daily Nation. Ruto doublespeak may derail Kenya clean energy push. President plans to phase out fossil fuels, but has signed Tanzania-Kenya gas pipeline deal. And speaking of clean energy, down here, just a reminder that the Kusi Ideas Festival focuses on climate change and will take place on the 8th to the 9th of December 2022. Let's take a look at what else is on the other newspapers, beginning with Business Daily. Front page here. Facebook to share traders' statistics with KRA and police agency seeking larger share of digital tax. Tech giants' new terms take effect from January 2023. I see on the ticker here, they say failed bid to stop Ruto CS picks. And KQ threatens to fire pilots after collapse of strike talks. That is on issues labor, and I can see that it is on page 3. That full story is on page 3 of the Business Daily. Taifa leo, majenerali wa hasla tayari baada ya vuta ni kuvute bungeni, hatimaye mawaziri wote wateule waidhinishwa tayari kuapishwa rasmi leo. Here we have the CSs now, and Taifa leo continues to say here mawaziri 24 waliojumuishwa kwenye baraza la kwanza la Rais Ruto wako tayari kuanza kazi ya kutekeleza agenda za serikali yake baada ya kuidhinishwa na bunge. This is on ukurasa ya pili, page 2 of Taifa leo, getting into what transpired that led up to the appointment of this cabinet. We expect that they will be sworn in today following that parliamentary group meeting at State House, Nairobi. All right, let's take a look at what the other dailies have for us, have in store. We have the Standard, and here I can see reality check for President Ruto rode into office on pledges to lower the cost of living and provide cheap loans to small businesses. But 6 weeks into his tenure, the head of state has been forced to review some of his campaign promises as the reality of the country's economic situation hits home. I can see they also have the story on the Pakistani journalist killed in Kenya. Pakistan deploys team to probe killing of journalist. And lone survivor Asakaja unveils cabinet. That is also on the Star. And we have here at the bottom here, ex-editor-in-chief, City, quote-unquote, Super CEC Kirich returns in Sakaja's cabinet. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja yesterday unveiled his 10-member cabinet. He sent home all members of the executive serving in predecessor Anne Kananu's administration except Jairus Musumba, and the Super CEC served under Mike Sonko, the quote-unquote Super CEC. But the top story there on the Star is battle for plum parastatal jobs as terms expire. Analysis shows nearly 40 state corporations will present low-hanging fruit. And a picture of a jumbo there. Drought has killed 273 elephants. Situation will worsen, KWS warns. And no fighting chances, how they've put it, for the wildlife given the drought we're facing. Mheshimiwa, you know, I have to ask you this question of CCs for Nairobi County.
Okay.
Given you were speaker there, let's see. Let's flip to page 20 and see if they have some other names for us. Page 20 of the Star. And I'm seeing Charles Kirich, who served under former Governor Mike Sonko, and Kananu made a comeback. Nairobi has 10 county usually Nairobi has 10 county executive committee members. And here are the names. Sakaja named Kirich as the CEC for Finance and Economic Planning. Brian Mulama, CEC for Talent, Skills Development and Care. Patrick Mbogo, Mobility and Works. Former Lands Chief Officer Stephen Mwangi, Buildings and Urban Planning. Ibrahim Auma, Administration and Personnel. Rosemary Kariuki, Hustlers and Business Opportunities. Maureen Njeri, Green Nairobi. Anastasia Mutevia, Health, Wellness and Nutrition. And Susan Silantoi, Inclusivity, Public Participation and Customer Service. The story continues to read, former Westlands MP Fred Gumo's son, Michael Gumo, was named as CEC for Innovation and Digital Economy, while Musumba has been retained as the county secretary. The list will be submitted to the Speaker of the County Assembly for vetting and approval. Sakaja also named David Njoroge as his Chief of Staff. Lawrence Wambua, who was the former CEC for Environment, as his Economic Affairs Advisor. Elias Mutuma, Legal Advisor. Samora Otieno, Health Advisor. William Dongo Fazul, Political Advisor. And Washington Yoto Ochieng as his Mobility Advisor. John Mwangi Maina will be the Governor's Advisor on Urban and Regional Planning, while Priscilla Mahinda will be his Private Secretary. All right, there we have it. What do you make of this lineup, Mheshimiwa?
Well, first of all, let me thank the governor At least he has brought in his team, and he has balanced it well. I can see he has put nearly each tribe that is in Nairobi, that votes in Nairobi, because every county, I've realized they are very protective of their counties. And everyone wants to joke with Nairobi, but you don't even understand the needs of Nairobi. The only thing I want to tell the Super CEC, who I respect, is that have an interest of Nairobi. The last time you worked for Nairobi, you ended up going to vie in a different county. After finishing that, you come back and ask Nairobians who have struggled in the campaign, done everything, and they give you to be their finance CEC. I think that one, I don't want to go beyond that, but he will then have to respect all of us in Nairobi. That's all I can say. And I'm hoping the MCAs and MCAs of Azimio must really question what is this interest that you have in Nairobi. Because if you have interest in Nairobi, you would have vied in Nairobi. And then we would have known. You have been our CC of lands. I'm hoping they will ask what benefits we gained at that time and why we should retain you and give you the most powerful position. They must question.
Okay.
And if they have the rights of Nairobi, we are telling them as Nairobian, you can also return. Yeah, the rights of Nairobi. I mean, you never bothered with us. You never came even one day to stand even with your governor when he was vying. So why now? What special do you have? What is this so special you're giving us as Nairobians? You're only coming for a job the same way you came last time, and then you leave us again and go look for, I think, the governorship or something that you are vying for. So have you come to take Nairobians' money to prepare for 2027? I mean, for me, I'll question. Because I have worked in this Nairobi and people are suffering. If you're going to be our finance minister, we would want to see a clear plan. How are we collecting revenue from our markets? How are we changing in the way we collect garbage? How are we ensuring that in the markets we can put in better ways of collecting garbage and ensuring that garbage becomes clean energy for lighting those markets, so that we also start seeing a difference in every market of Nairobi? How are you going to ensure you're collecting revenue while I agree we have challenges, I agree everyone must go and trade, but you cannot come and trade in front of someone's stall or shop who is awaiting a customer also to come in. Yet KRA will come for this person in the shop who is not trading anymore in Nairobi because everyone is on the corridor. And I'm not saying you remove them or what, because you allowed them in the first place. That is why we are having cholera and all that. But the most important thing I would want to see, how do you reorganize people who are cooking mutura, sambusa, all over in the streets here, even at Ambassador I saw everywhere. People can't pass, people can't walk. How are we reorganizing that trade and ensuring it can go at one place, and more importantly now allowing the owners of shop to also trade, because they are the ones you are going to ask for monies of their licenses and all that. So it's something, I am not against Ngerich at all. I am against an ethics where people take advantage of other counties. And you think you can come to a county, be employed, and you'll go back to your home county. It is not right. If you want to belong to Nairobi, come into Nairobi, work with us, let us transform Nairobi together.
Okay. All right. And I'll give you an opportunity, Wakili, to also respond, comment on this. I just also want to highlight some of the nominations as far as Siaya County is concerned. And I'm scrolling through my news alerts, and spokesman Cyrus Oguna appointed Chief of Staff by Governor James Orengo, signaling exit from the national government. Governor Orengo names his cabinet in Siaya, among them Velma Maumo, who was in Ryler's petition, Commission, and Benjamin Agina appointed the press director. Nairobi, Siaya, which one? Well, which do you think you're better placed to, or would you like to address?
Well, you know, because I don't have the full list for Siaya County. Velma, I know her very well. I've worked with her, I've mentored her. I'm very happy for her. She deserves it. Now, in terms of our key concern, you know, where we do not follow what we are supposed to do, there are always consequences. For example, we are supposed to appoint people based on a number of considerations. Their integrity quotient, their meritocracy, you know, the ability to bring prestige and faith, public faith, and build that into the offices that they come into. Now, where you appoint people based only on political patronage, they will feel that they are beholden to you and not the people of Kenya, unfortunately. And so they will do your bidding. And I've been concerned also about these appointments and, you know, the so-called wealth declarations pursuant to the Public Officer Ethics Act. And if you allow me to comment on that, you know,
please.
You find that somebody has been working as a teacher or a lecturer, for example, and there are several. And we know the salary of lecturers. Then you've been in public office or in parliament, actually, for 10 years. I've worked in parliament for 8 years. Now, so I know what happens in parliament and how much they get. Now, if you then come and declare your, your wealth as over 500, and having been a parliamentarian for 10 years, that means you're earning about over 50, going to 60 million, you know, per year, minus tax. That already should, I mean, we should have, if you had a serious KRA, there would already be, you know, on the case of some of these, most of these nominees. Sorry, that can only mean a few things. One, those wealth declaration forms or declaration statements have been made with an agenda, either to come in, acquire that wealth and say, you see, we already said we have this much. And because nobody is going to bother to follow up, EACC is not going to look at that. KRA itself, an interested party, unfortunately, we have a big problem with our institutions. Right now, they're not going to bother. Then, and these public appointments are not for nothing because people are questioning. You know, you've been an MP for 10 years. You're declaring of over 600 million. Where has it come from? We need to see that. Someone should follow because it means that if you're making 55 million a year, what are you paying for taxes a year? How much have you actually paid? Someone ought to follow that because maybe they're doing this with the aim of acquiring that wealth by some means over this period. But coming to the appointments even at the county level, I was part of a team that was commissioned by one of the UN women agencies to look at the level of inclusivity in appointments across the counties. And we found that most of the counties did not meet the 2/3 gender and the disabilities and the minorities and who are the other basically the marginalized group of people, special interest groups across the counties. And so for me, I'll be interested to see. I see Sakaja has, if I'm not wrong, 4 ladies, you know, which is fine. We can work on that. You cannot simply say, I cannot find ladies. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I can't find. I mean, all of you are very competent people and you can serve in different capacities. Kenya has a very highly skilled labor force in terms of human resource. So it cannot be an excuse anymore. So every appointment across the county, we need to check that they are compliant with minorities. You cannot be in Siaya and appoint only Luos. You know, that is a breach of the law. So we need to have more people rising up to give, to ensure that governors and their governments are accountable to the law. So that is what will be our interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, both of what you've said as regards to the wealth declaration, I can't remember who it was on the floor of the House who also advanced the same argument, saying some of these wealth declarations. I think it was Mbui, Robert, who said, you know, when they table these declarations, they now need to start giving us proof of this is the title deed, this is the logbook of this vehicle, such that the case isn't that they're declaring this amount with looking forward,
but Olive,
with a view of now garnering that
who is going to raise those issues? As you've heard what she said, a lot of people just don't want to speak. Why? Why is that? I mean, it reminds me of those days where the prophets would ask God, if we just give you 10 people, will you spare this nation? And God says, yeah, bring the 10. If we give you 8, will you spare Jericho, Jerusalem? Yes, I will. If I give you 5, will you? Yes. If I give you 2, at the end of the day, we need to look at ourselves. Where are you? If you know you have a murder case, if you know you have a rape case, and if you know you have other cases, why don't you say, President, I think you love me very much. Yeah. You've given me this appointment. But please, it doesn't bring honor to the office you're giving me. Let me stay aside as I clear this legally because I'm not guilty. So let me deal with this and come back. I'm sure there's something else you can give me. Serikali ni kubwa. They are not doing that. We have a problem. And therefore, what I see happening in this country is the pace towards the brink of collapse is very close.
All right. So some of what you said actually was echoed on the floor of the National Assembly, floor of Parliament. Let's take a look at what was submitted as regards representation and hawa wa generali.
I find fault in the following: that we have been provided with a list of nominees that goes contrary to the Constitution of Kenya. I cannot see a youth in that list. I cannot see a person with a disability in that list.
If you look at this appointment of these ministers, Madam Speaker, we have a cabinet now consisting of 24 members, Madam Speaker. 24 members. And if you look at the composition of this cabinet, Madam Speaker, of these 24, the region where the president comes from, Madam Speaker, 4 ministers come from there. Including the president, there are 5 in the cabinet. The region where the deputy president comes from have 8 ministers, Madam Speaker. Including him, there are 9. If you put 9 plus 5, there are 14. And the total number is 24. All the other parts of the country has only 10 cabinet ministers, Madam Speaker, ambayo wametupiwa kama kuku na tupiwa mahindi, Madam Speaker.
Because it is not easy to get 22 members of a cabinet from 47 counties which all desire to get a cabinet secretary, not able to get members from 42 ethnic tribes to be able to be represented in the cabinet like this.
One of the observations I also noted in the composition of the nominees is that there was no youth, there was no one who was under 35, and I believe that there are Kenyans, young people in this country, who can actually sit in the cabinet. We also have people living with disability who are, which is actually in our constitution, that when we constitute, different boards, positions, cabinet, I do hope that His Excellency the President will then consider people living with disability with the subsequent nominations in PSs, and other positions in boards, and even the young people of this country. And since he didn't meet his promise when he signed the charter of 50-50 in gender, I hope then he can do it also in the subsequent nominations.
All right. So, what do you ladies make of those sentiments?
Well, first of all, I don't know. Since 2013, I think that's how we've been constituting this thing of cabinet. Even last time, you remember. And I always tell people, this is not a different government. This is the same government. It only has a different name that they decided to use. But in terms of ideology, it's still the same. They will change a few things, but in the end, we'll realize it's the same thing. And so what they need to do is to ensure that going forward, things have to be a bit different. We should always remember, I don't know why we always forget that you are a minority government in this way. When you look at the country, Remember, we have 8 million people who literally refused to come out to vote for either Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. They stayed home. 8 million Kenyans. And then you have 6.9 who voted for Azimio, and you have your 7. It means, in total, 8 plus 7, you have 15 million Kenyans who don't believe in your ideology. And you must convince them to believe in this ideology. And the only way you can convince this 15 million is the day they will start seeing these issues that have been raised, which you promised, fuel, food, cheap credit. Let me talk about Kazi Mtahani. You might think Kazi Mtahani was a very wrong idea. Great. And because it benefits mostly areas where we have urban poor, which is the cities Nairobi, Kisumu, Nakuru, Mombasa, and other constituencies that are picked. The purpose was to help Kenyans in a way not to die of hunger. But don't give them free things, allow them to go out there. Government has so many things we need to do. It's not just collecting garbage the way I saw them just talking. It is about so many things in the rural constituencies. They would have done something. But in the end of the day, you have safeguarded many Kenyans who are sleeping hungry today. You know, when I hear the president speak, and who I have always said, the moment a leader picks the Bible, you respect. I respect. Yeah, I'll critique, but I respect you. I mean, you cannot tell me every evening kids that are within the malls today across Nairobi, thousands of kids, for heaven's sake. Why? There is hunger at home. All of them come in the evening from school. I am telling you, they're in Lavington, they're in Hurlingham, and not just there, they are all over. You walk in these streets of Nairobi today in the evening, you will be shocked how so many young kids. Why would you be a president where your future, your generation, because you don't come from this county, your county maybe is better, there's some food still, you think that everyone is at the same level. They are not. I want to plead with the president. They are not at the same level. Kids are going to close school in the next 1 month for 2 months. If we don't have something, whatever you want to call it, if you feel Kazi Mtahani is not the right word, please call it a hustler thing. But remember, your hustlers are going to be in this city. He will not believe what he will see. And so we must think of how we help the single mothers, how we help women who are the ones today feeding their families in all the informal sectors. They are not begging to be given free. They are asking for government to think. And we cannot wait for Hustler Fund to tell me now I'll give a woman will go to Kikomba, pick some clothes, or go to Marikiti, start trading. Most of them are not traders, so not all people have the talent of trading. Each of them have different. And you must be a president who also looks at post-COVID. Why are we in this challenge? Post-COVID. Does it mean when you are campaigning, because at that time you are not so much involved in it, it never hit you, that families are at zero? At families, when COVID came in, those who used to give mama kufua nguo, mama this, they decided because of COVID, they closed their homes and they changed, went into technology. Some of them bought washing machines. They no longer take women to wash nguo. So what do you expect this woman with her children? And it's not that she doesn't want to go home. It is because she's wondering, I have a kid in grade 6 who is about to do exams. I have another one in standard 8, courtesy of us doing our education system without thinking through. And so she's awaiting her children to do exams. What next? So for me to just come and think Kazi Mtahani was just a Kazi Mtahani thing for politics, I want to tell my president it was not. I wish you can walk yourself, and because he's a man who walks, and is a man who likes going to see for himself, can he walk in some of these vijijis, not on a car? Ingia Korokocho, ingia Madare, ingia Kawangware, ingia Kibira. Walk into a house at a time when you're thinking they're going to have supper. You will find they are waiting for a small boy, a small girl who has gone to ask, and somebody will give. Next time, we shall have these young kids being used to peddle drugs, because I'll just come, give you a cut. I give you something, pelekea ule, you take, you don't know what you're carrying. They will be used on drugs, on everything. So I want to plead with the president. You are a president who knows very well in the Bible, if there's anything God hates, is when people are in hunger. And I plead with him to relook at Kazim Johani when he sees his elephants are dying 273. That tourism sector is going down. So if elephants are dying, what about human beings? Where are they? Yeah.
All right. So we need to take a break, but Wakili, I will give you occasion to respond on the other side.
I fear for my climate, I fear for my environment, I fear for my people, and I fear for my life.
All around the country, the heat is on.
Hii watoto yangu suku ine tunelala hakuna chakula ushungu. Nasema Mungu huyu haje wewe na mimi.
Njaa mwalimu, njaa. Mwingine wanazimia.
And the life and death choices facing governments. What is Kenya's plan? And can global leaders find a solution?
We are alive to the challenges of drought.
This week, NTV begins the journey to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, with special reports from the ground and expert views on the road ahead. That's on NTV, where climate action matters.
Learn in a minute, brought to you by Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Dark marks on my face? What causes them? Yet I've tried everything. Hello, my name is Emma and this is Learn in a Minute. Dark marks are caused by different factors such as sun exposure, skin inflammation, for example, acne breakout, aging, or hormonal imbalance, leading to melanin imbalance and appearance of dark marks on the face. Let's start with dark marks from hormonal imbalance. It mostly affects us ladies and can be in the form of hyperpigmentation during pregnancy, where a lady's skin complexion completely changes. But panic not. Solution iko. You need a serum that regulates this hyperpigmentation and also prevents any reappearance. I'm thinking Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Marks. It starts working from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks. My name is Emma and this is Learn in a Minute.
Learn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
It is All Matters Coffee on the 29th October 2022. The Seeds of Gold Farm Clinic Coffee Edition shall bring together farmers, experts, and various stakeholders to exhibit products and services, hold demonstrations, network, and much more. Join us at Dedan Kimathi University of Technology, Nyeri County on October 29th, 2022 from 9 a.m. for an interactive session and training.
It is that time of the year again when we gather to celebrate excellence. The Women in Business Awards 2022 will be held at the Nairobi Serena Hotel on the 4th of November. The awards will start at 5 p.m. Individual tickets are 10,000 shillings for non-members and 7,000 shillings for members. A corporate table of 10 goes for 80,000 shillings and exhibition goes for 150,000 shillings. Join us in celebrating women and the men that make this possible.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. The conversation was continuing during the break, but Wakili, I did say I would give you occasion to respond on this issue of representation, and then there are other things that Mheshimiwa here raised. For example, given she's an MP for Dagoretti North in Nairobi, she's saying Kazi Mtaani, in her opinion, it was a mistake for President William Ruto to take the position that it was just about collection of garbage, and that is the purview of Johnson Sakaja.
Thank you, Olive. I personally believe that there is wisdom in, if you've come into government, there's wisdom in stepping back a bit and getting to understand all parameters of what is happening. Because a lot of Kenyans are dealing with real, serious survival issues. And therefore, when you come out and already make statements regarding, even before, I mean, I think the second day, the first day, day 2, day 1, you're already making pronouncements, about Kenya's relationships with other countries. You're already making drastic moves and measures and intentions. And we saw what he did at the Mashujaa Day. By the way, I was very happy for the first time I had an invite. Thank you to my to the new government for inviting me. But the thing is this, what the president ought to understand is that some of those initiatives, like I have my own issues with several people. We know the place of NYS, National Youth Service, and its potential for this country. And we regret what happened to the noble projects in that department. Personally, I'm handling 1 or 2 matters, and I'm hoping the DPP will also withdraw some of the cases against my clients. Similarly, the way he has withdrawn drastically some of the charges facing some of the CS nominees, because we have actually written to him and said, we also have these people and we think it was politically motivated. Withdraw these cases the same way you have withdrawn others. So we hope he will do that. But having said that, Honorable Waiguru, when she was there, and I must say that, some of the initiatives, Kazi Mtaani and the rest, have really changed lives. They make, a great difference between someone providing for his family and not. A lot of men are not marrying, Our young men are not marrying in the country generally, and this is a major problem, because when we are talking about issues of integrity, of accountability, they start in the family. And where we are in a situation where people are shying away from family because they are not able to sustain even themselves, it's a problem. I support what has been said by my colleague here about Mheshimiwa Lachi about Kazi Mtaani. Call it whatever you want. Hustler, Kazi ya hustler Mtaani, put hustler there, maybe it will add some value. But let that program continue because of the impact it has on daily survival. So I really think the president ought to step back. He may be a person who is used to working hard and giving direction and all that, and others following, which is what probably is good for this nation if you have the right team, but he also needs to take advice. Let us see him also being a leader who is able to be advised. And we are not seeing that so far. We are seeing someone who is running ahead, making statements even without there being a substantive cabinet, like he did at Mashujaa Day. And that to me is regrettable. So that everything he must have said ought to legally be set aside, because He's saying this where? He's standing from the streets making statements. He has a cabinet under the Constitution, and there is a way in which the president ought to work. It's outlined there. He wasn't doing that. And so for me, call it whatever it is, return the Kazi Mtaani initiative.
All right, and
yes.
we'll get deeper into that issue of the role of cabinet, because that also came up. Kalonzo Musyoka held a press briefing, I believe it was the day after Mashujaa Day, and he was saying, now that we have a quote-unquote incumbent, he was incumbent cabinet at the time, and his cabinet had not yet been appointed substantively. What was informing these decisions? On what basis were these pronouncements made? And we'll get into that. But first, the question of integrity also came up with regard to the cabinet and the cabinet appointees at this point. And they continue to plague some on the list as those on the majority side of parliament accuse former President Uhuru Kenyatta of abusing the justice system to his own ends, thereby making suspicions cast unreliable. This is what they argued. This was what was submitted.
This country, we have a constitution that says you are innocent until you are proven guilty. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge this House not to become a court. I urge this House not to become a jury. These people, Lintule was vying as a governor. Aisha Juma was vying as a governor. Having been approved by all institutions of this country, EACC and everything.
Uteuzi wa Soipan sio bora mama, ni mama bora. Manake Mheshimiwa Spika, hata kama tunataka kina mama wawe mawaziri na wawe viongozi, hatuwezi sema bora mama tu, lakini ni mama bora. Ili rais wetu aweze kushukisha bei ya unga, ili rais wetu aweze kushukisha bei ya mafuta, ni sharti tupambane na ufisadi katika nchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naomba tu Mungu kwa siku karibu tuone Wakenya wenyewe wakikataa kuteuliwa iwapo wanajua wako na madoadoa. Na unajua Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi kama mama sijui vile nitaenda kwa ofisi ya mtu ambayo ako na shtuma ya ubakaji.
When I look at that list and I'm looking at my fellow members of parliament of female gender contributing here, supporting a name of a person who attempted to get canon knowledge of a woman without her consent, I cry. Mr. Speaker, when I look at that list, Mr. Speaker, as I look at that list and I see people glorifying a nominee simply because she came from a humble background. What's your point of order? How many of these people come from a humble background?
Mr. Speaker, I've been charged 17 times before I became a member of parliament, and all those cases, none of them could stand the test of time. If these people had been judged during the regime of Mwai Kibaki, then we can say there is a bit of fairness. Some of us have been taken through DCI 9 times, Mr. Speaker, left free, and even today none of our cases have ever been, we have never been charged, but 9 times dragged through the DCI offices.
Oh, Mheshimiwa, you were there for it.
Yeah, I remember. The members of Kenya Kwanza were telling the honorable member of Lugari, cry. And I looked at them, I said, you know, we are all leaders. And I am seeing us crying in 2023 because the Kenyans that will come on us, we will remember these words at one point. So it is not a joking thing. And let me tell you, there's something God does. You see, you pray to God, God gives you something. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Because you've hungered for it. You fast, you do it. God says, here is it. But then, it's a test also from God. And if you joke, he now comes and hits you so hard to show you that, my son, my daughter, this was not the right time for you, but you cried for it, and I gave you. But I knew, if you are not careful, if you don't have the wisdom of rethinking and doing it now the right way, it will come to hurt you. So many of us are going to go through this, and the country, right now the way it is, we don't need any leader to tell the other one, cry. Kenyans are crying. They are suffering. They are wondering. We've just finished an election. We haven't even finished 100 days. Every Kenyan. I remember a woman called, a Shosho called me from Kiani. And she told me in Kikuyu. And I used her words. First, she asked me why I don't go for a program she normally watches. And I said, I will go. Then she told me, Yani, we are being brought now rice. As in, she said, we are now they are bringing to us rice. Tofa geraini, they do a line to get the rice. And she told me, if indeed it is in Central, we are now being given relief food. Kenya is finished. Because for her, she believes it was in Central where you should work hard and never go looking for food, but find food. But because there's no water, because there's no rain, they're in that state. So if that is the area, and that is the area that voted for government, and you are now removing Kazim Tahani, which was also in that area anyway, because it's a dry asal area. And that is why I was saying, relook at everything and ask yourself, there's no food, there's no money, and even the few cents somebody has, they are wondering where to go even to look for it.
Yep.
You cannot be absolutely, as a leader, doing what we are doing now. In fact, after they have done this swearing in, now reality check must dawn down, and now stop complaining that we had this. Government is a continuous thing. So there was nothing wrong even, as you say what you're saying at Mashujaa Day, because whatever is on the table is what the next CS has to pick on. You can't come and change. If you change, you'll have a problem. That's why Uhuru had to work through what Kibaki had left. And he ensured he delivered what Kibaki had left. I'm hoping that is what is going to happen as they bring in other things. Number two, this budget is not the budget of this government. It's a budget that was already passed with the previous government, and you must go through that budget. You can change a few things. Number four, I am hoping now the supplementary budget that is coming to Parliament will be a budget that looks at two things. You need to look to ensure now people are able to see flow going down, trickling down. What does that mean? You have to look for money to pay pending bills, a few pending bills, even if it's half of those pending bills, so that these people are able also to go pay back other people, pay back some of their banks. Council here, what she's talking about, I know those are her clients who have pending bills, who have not been paid because of 1, 2, 3. We must relook at why we have used Kenyans to supply things in government, while we know very well if you run a government well, you should never have something called pending bills. Because the moment you were doing the requisitions of those things, there was money. What happened? And so it is us government who have made Kenyans to suffer more because they have spent in their county governments and all this. And it's something we must take it. It will hurt us, but if you trickle money and pay pending bills to people, they will start again plowing back into your revenue, and you'll start collecting, and KRA will also get the money. So I am hoping that CS Ndungu, who I respect so much, worked with him when he was really, at that time, looking at Lamu, and Lamu was just a forest, and knew that it will transform the way it has transformed today. He has his challenges, everyone has their challenges. We have to look at that. We have to look at the energy sector and ask ourselves, do you reduce so that those who are coming in, are we still in the program of middle income, which already we are in, but we need industries, we need all those small things to just build back the SMEs, to build back the EPZs, and so that these young people are also able to get some work to do. Because what is this that you are giving the youth who don't have jobs? What is this program? Not Hustler Fund. That cannot be the program. Because not all youths also are traders. And so they are looking for something. Is it good that we move them to the innovation, to the ICT? How many are doing those things? Are we able to give them the laptops that they need? And give them an incentive that we were talking about of 7 years for them to start something. Is it possible? So I want to see a government that is not looking at, again, infrastructure. Uhuru looked at infrastructure. You can finish what he left, but can you go back and now look at how do we bring back Kenya, that human resource that we have that everyone admires across the world, to start rethinking how to work, even at home, but they are doing something. And that thing comes and goes through government and supports, and this young person is able to employ 2 or 3 youths as they move on.
Okay. Wakili, there is something, let me just pull up his name. I do not know it offhand, but it is the Chuka Igembe. Where is it? Ah. There we go. It is Ntwiga Patrick Munene, the Chuka Igamba Ngombe Member of Parliament. And he said, and I quote, that Linturi was vying as a governor, Aisha Juma was vying as a governor, having been approved by all institutions in this country, EACC and everything. Is that accurate? And he's not the first MP I heard during this debate on these cabinet appointees now. People saying the fact that they were cleared to contest the office of governor, because Aisha Juma and Mithika Linturi, the reason we focus on them is because the minority report from the Committee on Appointments declined to approve them on grounds of integrity. Is it accurate to state that just because IEBC cleared them to contest these offices, they're therefore clean, to quote Mbadi, clean as cotton? Okay. And he was using it not to endorse their candidature, but to oppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the process of leading this country to almost the drawing board has been hastened, you know. And at the relay of this process is IEBC, EACC, because when you look at the EACC Act, and EACC was established around 2011, and you look at the IEBC, its operation, its mandate, its act, IEBC, EACC have a duty to undertake to ensure we get leaders that conform to the offices and the public trust that we as Kenyans expect of those offices. They have failed, and I must say they have completely failed. Now, you know, it's a race, and you know, one person passes the baton to the other and the other. We understand where the president is coming from, and I think it's a political process. So as a president, you have been supported by your people, and if you look at his cabinet, it is a purely political patronage, or what is the right term? He is rewarding.
Loyalty.
His political supporters. So it is all about loyalty in his cabinet, period. And we can understand that as a politician who has run the kind of campaign he has, that is okay. But we expect that the institutions which are independent and which get payment from the consolidated fund are able to do their work effectively. There is nothing stopping EACC from conducting a thorough job in terms of its report to IEBC. And I have seen reports to IEBC because I was one of the council involved in the Sonko matter, for example, and others. And I can see the kind of work they do in terms of what reporting they send up to IEBC. It's completely mediocre. And IEBC, on the other hand, they are supposed to vet, you know, and there's nothing stopping them. They have all authority to say, we are not allowing you to vie because of ABCD, don't vie. Where is the next stop? I mean, the next person who takes the baton is the judiciary. Okay, these are all institutions that Kenyans have deliberately put in place to ensure that their system works. Now, if we lose the frontier of judiciary as a nation, we are in big trouble. And there have been concerns about the dilly-dallying or gerrymandering of some of our judicial offices with the government. I think that is an issue of great concern. And I asked some of my colleagues, what do you think of your judiciary? Some of them have completely lost faith in some of the judicial officers. And that's really quite a shame, because then someone ought to go to the court and say, I have been stopped from vying. And the court should be able to direct them to the reason why. You know, and that reason ought to conform with the law. But if we don't do that, we compromise our standards, we compromise integrity, and allow those kind of leaders to go forward, then it can only lead to what I've said, to the total collapse. Then we go to the drawing board and start Kenya afresh for the next generation. And I think for me, that's where I see we are heading very, very soon. We may have to go to the drawing board at one point, because someone will wake up one day and say, no, 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 no. I think I know where the problem is, okay? We as a people have allowed this to happen because Parliament, which is also part of the institutions, in spite of the report, and I saw that article about the game which as Kenya Kwanza team played on Azimio team. I don't think it's deliberate, that they were smart and they plotted that let us not pass Malonza and then use it as a bargaining chip. I don't think they would think that far. No, I think it just happened that, wow, this has happened. It's an opportunity. So they used it in an opportunistic manner, but it was not well calculated to ensure that they use it as a bargaining chip. No, I think the committee was very clear why they did not allow Malonza to go forward. And in my view, where you have numbers and interests, then we have seen what Parliament has done. It has given a clean check to everybody, you know, and said, okay, we are bowing down to our authority. We are beholden to the president. Why? Because we want goodies. So let us pass everything and make the government happy. And let us sit back and just enjoy our current cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what's happening.
And the reason I asked whether this statement was accurate is because I recall Yasin Juma sharing a statement while IEBC was carrying out the clearance. And they had a list of candidates whom they felt should not be cleared because they had pending issues. So for these MPs to then stand on the floor of the House, for me it was misleading and claim that they were cleared by everybody, including EACC, when that is not entirely accurate. In fact, David Ochie, who is Member of Parliament for Ugenya, yesterday, and I don't know whether we can pull up that clip, but we aired it yesterday. And this is what he had to say on the subject of integrity. And he said, in this country in 2013, our current president and former president were ICC indictees. They ran, we elected them. In this house, we have 30 MPs with cases in court. They are members of parliament. That's the truth. And therefore, you cannot tell me because Mithika Linturi has a case in court or Aisha Juma has a case in court, one of us has been convicted. Has a case in court and one of us has been convicted, but he ran. So, Mheshimiwa, I want you to think about this just before we play this last soundbite from yesterday's debate. What Mwangi Kujuri said on the floor of the House, and he said, I have been charged 17 times. I have been paraded before DCI 9 times, and out of that 9 times, no charges were preferred. And he said if these accusations were made based on charges that were made during President Mwai Kibaki's time, then maybe they would be fair. But given that it was President Uhuru Kenyatta who was in power, he said you cannot trust them. But before then, let's listen to what John Buddy had to say, because that is now the other issue that will bring our conversation to a close, on the role of cabinet and what Kalonzo had to say. Now, building on that, even as they cleared Penina Malonza, the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism now, managed to secure appointments despite having been rejected by the Committee on Appointments. Despite that happening, the question of competence remained in the discussion. Can you hear?
The president has actually appointed 2027 campaign managers. Give President Ruto his skunk. Let us not interfere with it. We give it to him. He has asked for it. Let us give him his cabinet. We know he's going to run the government from State House.
All right, we didn't manage to hear it here in the studio. I hope you did. So this is what he had to say for our benefit. And he said this. This is a cabinet that lacks competency, integrity in many aspects. So what was informing the appointment of this cabinet, if you can have Aisha Jumwa tasked with the responsibility of reforming our civil service, which has challenges, I fear that is not something that is going to work. He went on to say this is a cabinet that was informed by political expediency. The president has actually appointed 2027 campaign managers. He continued to say, give President Ruto his skunk. Let us not interfere with it. We give it to him. He has asked for it. Let us give him his cabinet. We know he's going to run the government from State House, from State House with his advisors. So first of all, that question of DCI.
Well, first I agree with Buddy, by the way, in many of the issues. And that's why I said it depends on how the president felt. How will he achieve what he wants? He knows better each competency of each leader he has chosen. As I said in the beginning, I know we have very few who are good, and I believe those are ministries we'll see moving. Public service, I think the best is to tell Honorable Aisha, just go. You need to learn. The first thing you'll have to do is go to government school and go through a vigorous program that will take her like 2 weeks. If she wants to get things moving, yeah? 2 weeks, 3, very vigorous, but it is important. It is the best program you can ever have to run civil service, and you will understand. Number 2, you will find, go and learn the ministry, you know. It takes care of the whole country payroll numbers of each in this country. It is, and that's now public service. It runs how you transform public service. It's not a ministry, it's the whole government. You have to ensure in the whole government, if it is a policy on how to do anything, you must sit and craft that policy to help the entire government of Kenya, both at the county and the national government. She has to ensure that she works very closely, because we have countries that come in and run different programs at the school, Kenya School of Government, in terms of also their civil servants. You have to come in and understand all the pensions of your civil servants, how they are within the different ministries. So you cut across, that's public service. It cuts across in teachers, in every docket, in police, in what, and then now work very closely with the Public Service Commission in terms of employment, in terms of seeing. There is one thing I'm hoping, which I don't know how she would do it, but it really hurt me when I was in the ministry, that you find different ministries with different grades, yet you are all in civil service, you are all working for government. So when you move from this, for example, agriculture, and you go to this other ministry, you find that there are a few pegs that are not realigned together. She needs to realign that. If you are a good minister, you realign so that people don't feel, I have to work. You fight. People fight, I need to work at Treasury because that's where things are good. Close that gap. Make it seamless. Where you work with government, you work with government. And then ensure each of us, our payroll numbers, even if I leave national government and I go to county, I'm still using the same payroll number so that I'm followed through. But then, at the same time, you're able to learn, and which is already happening. So you'll flag out my years. I'm about to retire in 2 years. It flags out. It starts showing you. And the day your retirement comes, it just closes. So you kill this thing called ghost workers. I don't know what, all those things, which Kobia has done very well. But now, where she needs to put more effort, which I believe that's where her strength is in terms of ensuring now the women programs come back in a proper way. You understand that this is a ministry of women, children. All those things are in the Ministry of Public Service. And so the gender department must now come out. Let's see that women programs that we are talking about. Let us see women programs of people with disability. Let us see programs of those who are vulnerable, the elderly, running properly. And I think that's her niche. Okay. This other one, work very closely with the technical team to guide and to show you how it works. Right. So it's a learning process, but she needs a fantastic PS, good accounting officers who will now manage those policies. Now, when we come to the issue of DCI, just one minute, I would wish the president would do this. Uhuru used DCI, isn't it? Why are you using it again? Why are we in court? We are just going to have a clash, and we are going to have very tough security issues in our country. And I have asked this government, and I keep on pleading, as much as I am, I ask them, if you asked for something and you have been given, do not revenge. Learn to forgive and make things work for Kenya. But this revenge, and I'm telling you, even their members in parliament, they still have the anger. Then I'm asking myself, what was the purpose? You are in anger. Oh, Uhuru did this to us. Oh, Uhuru did this. Oh, Uhuru did this. Oh, the handshake did this. You think there's not this handshake was just a handshake? I am giving them this time to June next year. Oh, you'll see how this country, we will have to be together. We will have to be one. And so if they think handshakes and things are not workable, let them just watch this space and make sure there's no food in this country. And make sure we are, for the first time, even wildlife are dying. I am telling the government, do not joke with Kenya. Don't put us on fire. Don't take us on a fire that you can manage, that you can hold. Hold every Kenyan. Right. That is why Uhuru went for that. He didn't go for a handshake because he loved it. He knew what is Kenya. And I want to tell them when I'm in Nairobi, don't joke. When people are hungry, things go fire. Yes.
All right. Wakili, your last word. Mheshimiwa Elachi served in the ministry of the said ministry that Aisha Juma is taking over now, given that after she served as speaker and now serving as the Agurity North MP. So that's her word of advice for Aisha Juma as she takes office. What's your last word to this cabinet?
Well, my last word is this. They are where they are because they had a vision bearer, the president. The president knows why he appointed them. And some of them, if the system would not have failed the Constitution, and Kenyans would not be there. The timing of the DPP's withdrawal of some of the cases is criminal. Okay, but I've met this DPP, I've sat with him in a panel, and so I'm not very confident as I was then, and now I think I'm vindicated in terms of his own competency. But that timing is very suspect. It's criminal in my view, and he should not have any business sitting in the DPP office, because you see, he also needs to inspire those who are under him into aspiring to be where he is. And I don't think he's instilled any great inspiration to the people under him. I have to say that as one in this profession. But having said that, since they are now in office and they are being gazetted, I think they ought to take some time to do some personal reflection as well. Because if we know that, I mean, the reasonable person, yourself, myself, and you know that someone owes almost every aspect of his position to a certain grace or a certain person or the president, then they're likely to feel beholden to do the bidding. They're there to do the bidding, whatever his bidding is. We don't know the intention of the president. We hope it is good for the nation. But if you feel like you're at the mercy of not being able to take charge of your ministry and deliver, and you have to only deliver for the grace that put you there, then it's a dangerous place.
Okay.
Take some time, reflect. Please, please, please have Kenya at your heart and deliver for this country, irrespective.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies. I really hate to have rushed you there. But Winnie Lubembe is at the Aga Khan University Hospital. And this being, we're still in October, we know it.
Yes, we are. Cancer.
So cancer, breast cancer is what they're I beg your pardon, AAR, and they're discussing breast cancer for the next hour, 8 to 9 a.m. Remember, Cabinet takes office today. The appointment was gazetted yesterday. My name is Olive Burrows. We've had advocate and arbitrator Eunice Lumalas in studio with us this morning. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Thank you very much, Dagoretti North Member of Parliament Beatrice Alachi. Unfortunately, Daisy Amdani was unable to join us this morning. Allow me to hand over to Winnie Lubembe.